All right, so today we're diving headfirst into the world of AI, and trust me, this one's a real doozy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about DeepSeek R1. It's this brand new AI model coming out of China, and let me tell you, it's causing quite a stir.
We heard whispers. What's got you so riled up about this one?
Well, you know how ChatGPT is all the rage these days,
And
right?
of course, everyone's talking about it.
Well, think of DeepSeek as ChatGPT's super smart cousin. Like, this thing is built to solve the kind of problems that make most AI sweat.
So we're not just talking about writing poems or generating code
No, no,
snippets.
we're talking hardcore math problems, the kind that would make most humans reach for a calculator, and not just any calculator, like a scientific one.
Okay, you've piqued my interest. What kind of math are we talking about?
I'm talking about things like the AA, the American Invitational Mathematics Examination.
Whoa, the AA. That's serious stuff. Most high schoolers I know wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Exactly. But DeepSeek, it not only tackled it, it aced it. And get this, it's also writing code, like really good code.
Okay, now you're just showing off. What else can this thing do?
We're going to unpack all of that, don't you worry. We've got research papers, benchmark results, the whole shebang.
Well, lay it on me. Let's demystify this DeepSeek and see what all the fuss is about.
All right, so to really get this, we need to start with DeepSeek's origin story.
Uh-huh.
Began with DeepSeek R10.
R10 sounds ominous.
Maybe a little, but stick with me. You see, most AIs, they learn by being fed tons and tons of data, like labeled data.
Right, like showing a kid a picture of a cat and saying cat over and over again.
Exactly. But DeepSeek R10, they took a completely different approach. They used something called reinforcement learning.
Reinforcement learning. That's like training a dog with treats, right?
Yeah, got it. Instead of being told what's right or wrong, DeepSeek R10 was basically thrown into the deep end, given a problem, and then rewarded when it got it right.
Interesting. So no hand-holding, no spoon-feeding information. It had to figure things out on its own.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. It actually worked. Like, really, really well.
Come on, are you serious? How is that even possible?
I know, right? It's mind-blowing. DeepSeek R10, it actually learned to solve problems in a way that resembles, get this, human thought processes.
Hold on, are you saying this AI was thinking like a human? Like actually reasoning things out?
Well, thinking might be stretching it a bit,
Yeah.
but it was definitely showing signs of, like, advanced reasoning.
Yeah.
The researchers actually observed this instance where the model seemed to have, like, an aha moment.
An aha moment, like it suddenly figured something out?
Yeah, it changed its approach mid-problem and then, boom, found the solution. The researchers were blown away.
Wow, that is wild.
Yeah.
So we've got this AI that's basically a self-taught genius, huh?
Pretty much. But even geniuses have their quirks, right? And DeepSeek R10 was no exception.
Oh, I'm sure. What kind of quirks are we talking about?
Well, for one, it had this tendency to mix languages in its output. Like, imagine a brilliant mathematician who suddenly starts spouting equations in a mix of English and Mandarin.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that would be a bit confusing. So how did they go from this eccentric genius to the more refined DeepSeek R1 that you mentioned earlier?
Ah, that's where things get really interesting. They introduced something called cold start data.
Cold start data? What's that? Some kind of AI boot camp?
Sort of. Instead of starting completely from scratch, they gave the model a small but carefully curated set of examples, just to kind of nudge it in the right direction.
So like giving it a little cheat sheet to help it get started.
Exactly. And this really helped to smooth out some of those rough edges, improve the readability of its output, that kind of thing.
Interesting. But I'm guessing that wasn't the only trick up their sleeve. How else did they refine this AI prodigy?
Well, from there, they implemented this multi-stage training process, really put it through the ringer to fine-tune its abilities.
Multi-stage training. Sounds intense. Break it down for me. What did that involve? Oh, so picture this. Multi-stage training. First, you've got more reinforcement learning, but this time it's all about reasoning and safety.
So they're basically saying, okay, you're smart, but let's make sure you're using your powers for good.
Exactly. They're pushing DeepSeek to solve those complex problems, but also making sure it doesn't go off the rails, spewing out biased or harmful stuff.
Makes sense. We don't want another HAL 9000 situation on our hands. What's the next stage?
Next up is supervised fine-tuning. Think of it like a teacher stepping in to give some structured guidance. They use data from all sorts of areas like writing, question answering, even self-cognition to really align DeepSeek with, well, how humans think and expect things to work.
Okay, so they've got this AI prodigy. They put it through rigorous training. Now it's time for the real test. How did it perform? Spill the tea.
Oh, it did more than just perform. It blew the competition out of the water. Remember that AIME exam I mentioned earlier?
Yeah, the one that gives high schoolers nightmares.
Yeah. That's the one. DeepSeek R1 not only passed, but it went head-to-head with OpenAI's latest model and held its own.
Hold on, are you saying it performed as well as one of the leading AI models out there?
Yep, pretty much. But it didn't stop there. They also tested it on Code Forces.
Code Forces. Remind me, what's that again?
It's a platform where coders, like hardcore programmers, compete. And get this, DeepSeek reached expert-level rankings.
No way. So this AI is not just a math whiz. It can actually write code like a pro.
Oh, yeah. And then, just to make sure it wasn't a one-trick pony, they threw it a curveball, the MMLU test.
MMLU, that's what, a general knowledge test, right?
Yep, it covers a massive range of topics. And DeepSeek aced it, showed it had a deep understanding of, well, just about everything.
Okay, so we've got an AI that's a math genius, a coding master, and a walking encyclopedia. Impressive, but there's got to be a catch, right? Like, isn't all this power incredibly complex and resource heavy?
Ah, that's where things get really clever. DeepSeek's creators, they took all this amazing reasoning ability and used something called distillation to create smaller, more efficient models.
Distillation. Now, that sounds like something you do with whiskey, not AI.
Funny you should say that. It's a great analogy. They basically took the essence of DeepSeek R1, all that knowledge and power, and concentrated it into a more, shall we say, palatable form.
So they made this cutting-edge AI more accessible.
Exactly. They used popular open source models like Qwen and Llama as the base, and the results were remarkable. These smaller versions of DeepSeek could actually outperform some of the bigger, bulkier models out there.
So they're not just hoarding all this AI brilliance, they're actually sharing it with the world.
Well, to a certain extent, it's a delicate balance, making it accessible but also being mindful of the potential risks.
Right, because with great power comes great responsibility, or something like that. But hold on, if China is behind all this, doesn't that raise some eyebrows?
Oh, absolutely. This isn't just about technological advancement. It's a major power play in the world of AI.
So DeepSeek is more than just a cool new AI. It's a sign that China is becoming a major force in the global AI landscape.
You got it. And that has implications for everything from research and development to economic growth, even national security.
This is getting pretty intense. So what's the next chapter in this AI saga? Where do we go from here?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, especially when we start talking about access and who gets to use this technology. That's a whole other can of worms.
So we're back, and let's face it, we've uncovered a whole lot to think about with DeepSeek. But there's this one question that just keeps swirling around in my head.
What's that?
Who actually gets to use this tech? Like, is it just going to be locked away in some super secret lab? Or will regular folks like you and me ever get a chance to play with it?
That's the million-dollar question right now, and honestly, it's causing quite a stir in the AI community. There are some folks who think that these super advanced AIs, they're just too risky to let loose in the wild.
So, like, keep it all under wraps, only for the select few, the chosen ones.
Exactly. Their argument is that if this tech falls into the wrong hands, who knows what could happen? Misinformation running rampant, AI being used for all sorts of shady stuff. It could be a real nightmare.
I get it. It's like giving a toddler a chainsaw. Probably not the best idea. But what about the other side? What do they say?
Well, they argue that restricting access is like putting a giant padlock on innovation. It creates this huge divide between those who have the resources and those who don't.
Yeah, it's like saying only the rich kids get to play with the cool new toys.
And that's where the whole open source AI movement comes into play.
Okay, I've heard that term thrown around, but what does it actually mean in plain English?
Think of it like this. Instead of keeping the recipe for DeepSeek a closely guarded secret, they're sharing it with the world. The code, the algorithms, all that good stuff, it's all out in the open for anyone to study, tinker with, even improve upon.
So it's like turning AI into a giant potluck. Everyone brings something to the table.
Exactly. And this open approach has some serious perks. First off, it's a breeding ground for innovation. More brains working on the problem means faster breakthroughs, more creative solutions, the whole 9 yards.
And it's not just about speed, right? Doesn't it also help make AI more trustworthy?
You got it. Transparency and accountability, those are the biggies. When everyone can see how the sausage is made, so to speak, it's easier to spot any potential biases, risks, or ethical hiccups.
So it's not just about building AI, it's about building it right.
And here's the real game changer. Open source levels the playing field. It means that even those without a billion-dollar budget can jump into their AI game, create solutions that are tailored to their specific needs.
So we're not just talking about tech, we're talking about empowerment. That's pretty amazing.
Huh.
But what about DeepSeek? Are they playing in this open source sandbox?
They are. Remember that distillation process we talked about where they created those smaller, more manageable versions of DeepSeek? Well, they went ahead and open sourced a bunch of them.
So they're actually putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak. That's a pretty bold move.
It is. And it could have a ripple effect, encouraging other big players to embrace open source AI as well.
Okay, so we've gone from DeepSeek acing math tests to this whole philosophical debate about who controls AI. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
I know, right? It's like we're standing at this crossroads where technology is pushing us forward, but we also have to make these big choices about how we want to shape the future.
So what's the takeaway here? What should we be thinking about as we move forward?
I think the biggest thing is that we can't get so caught up in the hype that we forget about the human side of things. Ethical considerations, social impact, those have to be front and center.
It's not just about building cool tech, it's about building a better future. Yeah.
Exactly. And DeepSeek, it's just one piece of this much larger puzzle. We've got to stay curious, ask tough questions, and most importantly, be part of the conversation about how AI shapes our world.
Well said. That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI. It's been an eye-opener, that's for sure.
Absolutely, and I'm sure this is just the beginning of the conversation. Who knows what mind-blowing developments we'll be unpacking next time.
To our listeners, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep diving deep. Until next time.